There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer and meditation. Thank you. May be seated. Honorable members, I wish to announce that the vacancy which occurred in the National Assembly owing to the resignation of Mr. M. Waters has been filled by the nomination of Ms. T. Bodlani with effect from the 17th March 2021. The member has made and subscribed the oath in our office through the virtual platform. Welcome, Honorable Member. Lastly, in the interest of safety, Honorable Members, we remind you once more to please keep your masks on and generally stick around the seat you're allocated to. That will be great for the day and for all of us' safety. Honorable Members, I've been informed that the President will speak to us virtually. So that's the situation today. Now, Kasisutu, can you deal with that echo, please? We would have liked him to be here. He always prefers to be here. He's unable to be so. So we will deal with it. As it says, there's only one item on today's order paper, and this is questions addressed to the President. There are 4 supplementary questions. On each question, parties have been given an indication which questions their members wish to pose a supplementary question to. Adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting, especially to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized. In allocating opportunities, the principle of fairness, as usual, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question, this is to remind you, through the virtual platform, and is unable to do so due to technical difficulties, the party whip on duty in the House and or elsewhere will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all the supplementary questions have been answered by the President, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. The first question has been asked by Honorable M.T. Kibi. Welcome, Mr. President, and please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be in the House.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
What's the point of order, Honorable Member?
I was waiting to check who is going to be answering these questions, because all of us who are here are representing political parties. And as far as we're concerned, maybe you must deal with that first. Who is representing? Because the information that we have is that Mr. Ramaphosa is suspended from the organization. He's supposed to mandate him here. So you must clarify who is representing. Is he representing his jacket?
Order.
Or is he
Order.
representing a political party?
Order.
Because he's not permitted by his own organization. Anyone here in this house. Who is he representing? We want to listen to that first.
Honorable Member, please sit down. Honorable Members, this is your information through your own networks and things. We don't know what you're talking about. As far as we are concerned, the President is here and he's going to, you heard him anyway. So the President, go ahead, please.
Deputy Speaker.
No, honorable member, if you are proceeding on this thing, I have ruled on this matter and I have communicated
But
to you.
it's false to say that which
No, honorable member,
information that
honorable
is about
member,
this
I'm speaking
It
as
must be dealt with
honorable,
here before-
honorable Shivambo,
listen to a person who might be representing his jacket.
honorable Shivambo,
Who
in
is
the first
representing?
place, you stood up there without anybody recognizing you. This is a violation of the rules of the House. You are out of order, and if you repeat it, honorable member, this will be considered contempt, and I think you should accept that. And in the first place, we are here as Parliament, not as anything else. Honorable
Social
President, please
distance,
proceed.
wena Floyd, social distance. Huma kwalawo. U tshama kahle. A yi huwi hina la. Hi ta ntirhweni.
Honorable members, please don't rule from the floor. Honorable members sitting on that seat, you are not supposed to be sitting like that, please. Please, you know that. Thank you very much. Honorable members, don't rule from the chairs where you are sitting. We will reserve this chair for you, but in the future. Mr. President, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker,
Yes?
on a point of order.
What's the point of order?
Yeah, the Deputy President of the EFF asked a question and it has not been responded to. With
What?
all the greatest respect, I'm talking to the Deputy Speaker.
What's your question,
The
honorable member?
question is, who is the person that is speaking now? Answer.
Honorable member.
Speaking on
Honorable
behalf
member.
of- We are here as
But
members
it's
of
not
Parliament
Floyd's responsibility to know who the
Deployed by
president is. He
political
must worry
parties.
about the EFF.
Please.
Point of order.
Honorable members.
Deputy Speaker, can you protect me?
Honorable member.
Point of order.
I'm on the floor. Can I be protected
Honorable
from
members.
these people? Hey, but
Honorable
this is not the
members.
Parliament.
From what?
This is my
Are you members of the ANC now? What's your
I'm speaking to a
concern?
deputy speaker here. Tulanga fela.
Floyd must worry about Julius, not the ANC.
Deputy Speaker, can you control your members,
Point of
please? They're
order.
out of order.
But not these people, but members
Control
of
your
parliament.
members.
Honorable members.
Point of order.
Honorable members. Honorable members.
Point of order.
Honorable members, including those on the virtual platform, can you
Please chase them the way.
please, honorable member, can you take a seat so that I address you, please?
Okay.
Yeah, honorable member, this is Parliament, and Parliament has not heard a story that you are telling us about, you and your chief whip. We don't know what you are talking about as Parliament. So there is no question of such nature that arises as a result. We are here to listen to the president of the country, and so this is what's going to proceed. Honorable President, please go on. I'm not taking any order on this matter anymore. Honorable President, let's proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable members,
Honorable members, give the
In
president
relation-
a chance to speak, please.
in relation to the first question, the achievement of a national democratic society is a necessary response to the economic and social inequalities in South Africa. It describes a society that is truly united, democratic, non-racial, and non-sexist. It is an inclusive society in which all people benefit from sustainable economic growth. Since the advent of democracy in 1994, the country has made valuable progress along the path towards a national democratic society. We are not yet there, but we have made great progress. Now, the measures we are undertaking to rebuild our economy in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic are contributing to the fundamental transformation that is required to advance that aspiration. We have said before that the economic reconstruction and recovery plan cannot simply return our country to where it was before the pandemic struck. It needs to build a new, more inclusive economy that can effectively reduce poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Through this plan, we are mobilizing investment, creating new jobs, and supporting existing ones and accelerating industrialization. We are undertaking large-scale public investment in key sectors of our economy, such as energy, water and sanitation, roads and bridges, human settlements, health and education, digital infrastructure, and public transport. Investment in infrastructure is transformative. Not only does it stimulate growth and expand economic infrastructure, but it also improves our competitiveness and promotes job creation. It also provides crucial social infrastructure and services to the people of our country, particularly those in poor and underserviced communities. Already we have seen over the last 27 years how our investment in infrastructure, whether for electrification, whether for water provision or housing, has contributed a great deal to reducing poverty. We've seen how our investment in schools, in clinics, in colleges and universities have opened the doors of learning to many young people and improved access also to healthcare. As we promote investment in sectors such as agriculture, in manufacturing, mining, tourism, we are supporting emerging businesses in these areas that previously they were not even able to participate in, through the provision of finance, training, and access to markets. Our emphasis on localization aims not only to benefit established companies, but also to grow small-scale manufacturers in the townships and also to promote our rural entrepreneurs. We are undertaking the presidential employment stimulus to provide work opportunities through public employment programs as well as through the protection of existing jobs, and also with a view of supporting livelihoods. By the end of March, the presidential employment stimulus had supported over 650,000 people in opportunities through a wide range of programs for people who would otherwise have remained unemployed, with over 500,000 participants already at work. As part of this employment stimulus, more than 300,000 education assistants were placed in over 20,000 schools across our country. Funding has also been provided to protect vulnerable teaching posts. Income support is being provided for more than 100,000 workers in the early childhood development sector. More than 50,000 opportunities are being created in public employment programs in the environmental sector, including in natural resource management, fire protection, and on the war on waste. Almost 2,000 artisans have been hired by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure to support water and energy efficiency, and many of these are young people. They've also been brought into facilities management and into the Rural Bridges program. The expansion of the Global Business Services Incentive has enabled the creation of more than 8,000 new jobs in the sector since October. More than 100,000 small-scale and subsistent farmers are being provided with input vouchers to expand their agricultural production. Deputy Speaker, as we enter the second phase of the stimulus, we are focused on ensuring that we establish pathways for participants into the private sector employment in areas of education and training and enterprise support. The Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan is underpinned by a dedicated focus on key economic reforms, particularly in network industries like energy, water, ports, rail, and telecommunications. Through the Operation Vulindlela, we are accelerating the implementation of these reforms and unlocking investment and growth. Economic reforms are also necessary to reduce the cost of living for South Africans who will benefit from more efficient, competitive, and sustainable services like electricity, water, as well as transport. The achievement of a national democratic society requires a capable developmental state, a state that is people-centered, but also a state that is free from corruption. This administration has therefore taken decisive measures to confront state capture and corruption, to rebuild public institutions and strengthen law enforcement agencies, and to also professionalize the public service. Through the district development model, we are seeking to bring all levels of government closer to our people and to ensure that communities and other stakeholders are more involved in the development and implementation of local development plans. As we have worked towards our goal of a national democratic society over the last 27 years, we've been confronted by numerous challenges. We've had to tackle the damaging legacy of our apartheid past, which continues to divide our society by race, gender, and class, and to cast a shadow, a dark shadow, over the future of our young people. We've also had to confront our own weaknesses, including corruption and areas of mismanagement and poor delivery. Most recently, we've had to confront the coronavirus pandemic, the most severe global health crisis in more than a century. But as we work to rebuild our economy and society, we continue to pursue the fundamental social and economic transformation that our Constitution promises and that the people of this country desire and so deserve. Deputy Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable T. Kibi, who's on the virtual platform.
Enkosi kakhulu Deputy Speaker. Enkosi Mongameli ngokuphendula umbuzo wami. Mongameli, ekukhawuliziseni umanyano lwenhlalo elizweni lethu ngokusebenzisana kukahulumente nemibutho yoluntu kwaye nemibutho yamazwe ngamazwe ekuphuhliseni umanyano, ingaba akhona amanye amanyathelo amatsha kwaye nezicwangciso ezitsha eziza kukhawulezisa iinjongo zelizwe ekuphuhliseni iinjongo ze-NDP 2030? Enkosi, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Ndiyabulela. Ewe akhona amanye amanyathelo amaninzi esijongane nawo esisebenza kuwo okwangoku. The focus on creating jobs is the main focus of this administration. It is for that reason that we focus on attracting investment into our economy from both the local business, both public sector as well as private sector, but also from international investors, some of whom operate their companies here, and we're in the process of attracting more and more of them. Our focus is also on infrastructure. Infrastructure investment remains one of the key areas that we want to grow our economy through. And we're focusing on ensuring that we attract the private sector to invest with us. It is for that reason that we set up an infrastructure fund, which is up and running now, where the government has invested money and is in the process of attracting private sector investors in the form of various funds, development funds from all over the country and all over the world. Focusing on infrastructure means that we can create more jobs, and we've got a number of projects that are already under implementation. A number of others are shovel ready, and a number of others are going to be focusing on improving the lives of our people at local government level in areas such as water and roads and houses. Student accommodation is another area where we're attracting quite a lot of investment. The reindustrialization of our economy is another important area, and we want to be able to achieve this through localization, through ensuring that we promote small and medium enterprises to become key players in the localization of production of products and services in our own country. And through that, we're hoping that we will be able to support a number of businesses to continue growing. Small and medium enterprises need our support to access markets as well. Women-led businesses and youth-led businesses will continue to be our focus. Emakhaya, ezokulima, sifuna ukuthi i-agriculture yethu ibe i-agriculture e-productive, ezenza ukuthi sikwazi ukulima, sibe nezinkomo, and abantu bakuthi they must be able to export their products. I was overjoyed when I went to the Eastern Cape a few weeks ago, and I met about 54 emerging black farmers who are now in the citrus sector and who are now exporting their citrus products. And they said what they now need is more land, more financial support. It is in these areas that we want to upgrade our agriculture and a number of other areas through our country. And it is for that purpose that agriculture support is growing by leaps and bounds. And of course, in all this, we want to continue improving the skills of our young people so that they can be so well trained and be able to be active participants in our economy. So those are a number of some of the initiatives that we are involved in. That is part of our economic recovery and reconstruction plan. With the Vulindlela initiative, we're pushing ahead with all the reforms that we need to embark on, so that our economy can recover, so that we can create more and more jobs. This is our focus. This is what we are seeking to do through this plan. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable members, the second question is by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, once again, you've tiptoed around the elephant in the room. At the heart of the failures mentioned in the original question lies your policy of cadre deployment. Every individual who crippled a state institution or allowed SOEs to be turned into pots of lootings for cadres were deliberately deployed there by the ANC. Many of them while you yourself were the head of the cadre deployment committee. In the Zondo testimony, you said that, well, sometimes you got it wrong. Well, that's some understatement. Mieni, Molefe, Gama, Singh, Abrahams, Fraser, Montana, Motsaneng, Mkwabani, and the list goes on. All deployed on your watch. This cannot be justified in a democracy. Now, Mr. President, the DA's put its money where its mouth is, and we've tabled the End Cadre Deployment Bill in this House. So my question to you today, Mr. President, is will you support this bill? And if not, why won't you support this bill to end cadre deployment?
Mr. President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I would like to say that Mr. Steenhuisen's, or Honourable Member Steenhuisen's, question is completely misdirected. It is not cadre development. It is indeed where we might have gone wrong, the people themselves who may have had their own missteps. There's nothing inherently wrong with cadre development. I did say at the Zondo Commission that to the extent that we need to streamline it with the concept of professionalizing our public service, we are willing and prepared to do so. And professionalizing our public service means that we are going to move ahead forward with appointing people who are fit for purpose. Now, sometimes you may appoint people thinking that they are fit for purpose.
No, it's okay.
And they may be found wanting in one area or another. All over the world, governing parties, including the Democratic Alliance where it governs, does embark on political appointments, political intervention in appointments. Because what governing political parties seeks to do is to ensure that it has people who understand its ideology, who understand its principles, who understand its programs. And those people are usually your high-end people who will be driving the clear vision that the governing party seeks to achieve. And this should never be mistaken with saying that everybody in the public service should be a member of a political party. The OECD produced a wonderful paper that is written by Mr. Matheson and a number of others, where they say it is necessary that governing parties should be able to appoint people at a political level. But those people must be fit for purpose. Those people must be able to execute what the political party has been given as a mandate by the voters. Now, 10 million voters voted for the ANC, and having done so, we went to those 10 million voters and said, this is our manifesto. And to execute our manifesto, we need people who will be able to drive that manifesto implementation. So there is nothing wrong with cadre development. It is done all over the world. I even at the Zondo Commission quoted what the leading lady of British politics, Margaret Thatcher, used to say. And she used to say it possibly much more pointedly than us. And she used to ask, is he or she one of us? And that is how she went about appointing key people in her administration. Now, we are saying that our cadre development appointments is really about ensuring, as we move forward, that we professionalize the public service, have people who are well qualified, fit for purpose, who will be able to act in the interests of South Africans and not be acting in their own personal interests, driven by greed or the interests of others where they are captured. The days of state capture are over. And we now want people who are fit for purpose, who will be able to act in the interests of all South Africans. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Deputy Speaker, I'm very glad I've got the President quoting Thatcher. That's some progress. But he did not answer the question.
No, Honourable
The question was, would he support the bill or not?
No.
He hasn't answered that question. Now, let's not make the same mistake the Zondo Commission has criticised Parliament for, by not getting people to answer the question. It was a simple question. Will you support the
Member.
bill?
Point of order.
If not, why not?
Honourable Member.
Point of order, Deputy
This is the
Speaker.
problem. I'll give you a chance, Honourable Member. Honourable Steenhuisen. This is a problem of... I do wish honourable members could recognize the effect. Honourable Member, we are talking here from the chair. Can you have some, at least modicum of respect for a moment? It doesn't have to be your entire life. Just whilst we are speaking, can you hold on to your horses a little bit? We expect you to ask your question and then say everything else. If everything else, and then the question at the end, the person listening to you is likely to focus on the rest of your story. As the President did. No, I am advising you, because you will have constant quarrels that your questions have not been answered. You will have that. I am telling you that. Mr. President, I'm sure you will answer that question. There's no problem with doing so. The President has a choice on the matter.
Deputy Speaker, it appears like Mr. Steenhuisen wants to force feed me. Now he wants to force feed me with a menu of food that I have not even seen. I have not had sight of this bill that he's talking about. I don't know its contents. I don't know its objective. And once I have looked at it, I'm quite happy to give Mr. Steenhuisen a very straightforward and direct answer. Show me the bill, and I will be able, offline or online, to give you my view on it. Thank you very much.
Honourable Mishwe. Order, order, honourable members. Honourable Mishwe, it's your turn. Let's listen to the ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, in my response to your 2018 SONA address, I thank you for giving hope to the people of South Africa after a number of commitments you made. Among these, you promised to ensure that the tide of corruption in our public institutions would be turned. But from what we are experiencing and what we are seeing, it is happening at a very slow pace. You also said, and I quote, "We are one people committed to work together to find jobs for our youth, to build factories and roads and houses where families would feel safe, be productive and content." Mr. President, there are still many people in South Africa who still are not feeling safe. Unemployment is risen, and many are desperate for a healthcare facility near them. My question to you, Mr. President, is does the state have the capacity and the will to reverse the hopelessness and low morale that so many South Africans are feeling, while some...
Honorable member, your term has expired. You know how much time you have. Why do you extend it without permission? 13 seconds. No, man, no. Honorable members, please. Honorable President, please respond to the question.
Thank you. We have been taking steps ever since the 6th administration started to root out corruption, to address malfeasance in government, and we never really expected it to be done in 1 year, in 1 season. It is a process. And it is for that reason that we've taken steps to change the trajectory of a number of our law enforcement institutions. And the Zondo Commission is in the process now of uncovering quite a lot of what happened in the past, which we will attend to once that report is out. So it is a process. Do we have the will? Do we have the determination to address the aspirations of our people? The answer is yes, we do. We are committed to doing so. And sometimes, yes, we may move slowly. Governments often move very slowly, but we're shortening the time of being able to do things that are in the interest of our people. We're coming from a very low base, and we will keep on working to improve the lives of our people when it comes to those matters that impact on their lives at a social level, at an economic level, and at many other levels. We are committed to doing so, and this is what this government is all about. Will we make mistakes along the way? Yes, we will. Will we seek to correct our mistakes? Yes, we will. The important thing is that we will keep moving forward all the time. And we would like to see all of us working together in unison, addressing the interests of our people. That to us is what matters most. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The last supplementary question is asked by Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, you in the Zondo Commission admitted that your party, the ANC, has been receiving funding. Sometimes you knew that it was unlawful, and then sometimes you knew after that, but never returned the money because your organization always needs money. Now, I put it to you, Mr. President, that your party and many others that benefit from this unlawful means are drinking the blood out of the bone of the most vulnerable people in this country. Will you consider withdrawing from the elections, as you all have lost integrity, number one, not only the ANC, but other parties that unduly benefit from these things? Charge criminally those that have received and those that knew about it and did very little or nothing about it. It's a criminal act to know that this criminal acts that are taking place and you do nothing about it. Will you consider withdrawing from the elections and those other parties in the interest of creating a better society?
Honorable President.
Should I wait for your invitation to answer, Deputy Speaker, or go ahead?
No, proceed. Don't wait, Mr. President. It's your day today.
I'm trying to be very disciplined, Deputy Speaker.
I'm absolutely
I was
impressed.
taught that I should only speak once invited to do so by yourself. So forgive me if I'm over-enthusiastic in relation to my disciplinary approach.
No, I appreciate it, President. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm asking myself whether Honorable Sheikh Imam's question really warrants an answer, because he's asking whether we should withdraw. Possibly he's suggesting that the ANC should withdraw from the elections, and those other parties that may well have received money. But how does that answer and provide an answer to the people who are out there who would like to see those political parties who have programs, who have solutions to their problems? My simple answer is no. The African National Congress will participate in the forthcoming elections with a great deal of enthusiasm. We get elected to represent the people of our country. As you will have seen, and this I say with all humility without being arrogant, majority of our people still have confidence in the African National Congress. But their confidence is born out of their trust and belief, and also their evidence that they see that we are addressing the challenges that beset the organization in the past. You yourself, Honorable Imam, will have seen how the African National Congress continues to be trusted by our people through the local government by elections that have been going on, where the ANC has been winning quite a number of seats, even from its opponents. Those people can see what is happening, and they see that the ANC is in the process of renewing itself, rebuilding itself, correcting itself, and demonstrating its determination to focus on the interests of our people. They themselves are investing confidence in the ANC. Now you stand here, Honorable Imam, and say, should we consider withdrawing? No, we will not, because our people want us to continue addressing their aspirations and fulfilling their dreams, which we continue doing on an ongoing basis. I'm sorry, therefore, to disappoint you and say we will not withdraw. Maybe you may well want to withdraw yourself. Maybe you are sending us a subtle message that the NFP actually wants to withdraw. If you want to withdraw, withdraw on your own. Do not invite us to withdraw from the elections. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question is question 2 has been asked by Honourable the Leader of the Opposition. Mr. President, question 2.
Thank you. An effective, comprehensive vaccination program is in the end an essential part of the fight to overcome the coronavirus pandemic. Since we started negotiating with vaccine manufacturers around September of 2020, we have made significant progress and have overcome many challenges in securing sufficient vaccines to achieve what is known as population immunity. In in January, South Africa signed a contract with the Serum Institute to deliver 1.5 million AstraZeneca doses to vaccinate health workers. The first batch of the vaccines was received in February of this year. Unfortunately, the discovery that AstraZeneca was not effective against the dominant new variant of the virus meant that an alternative had to be sought. And this decision was based on thoroughgoing discussions with our experts. It was not a decision that was taken by people who do not have the scientific and expert knowledge of how vaccines function. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was shown to be more effective against the variant that was found in South Africa. And it was then that the vaccination of health workers began, once we had received a number of doses. The vaccination process was interrupted briefly when the US Medicines Regulatory Body, the FDA, halted vaccination using the J&J vaccine in mid-April this year because of extremely rare yet severe blood clots experienced by some people who were vaccinated, resulting in the deaths of a very few people. South Africa's Health Products Regulatory Authority, SAPRA, asked the Department of Health to halt the vaccination until the review of the available data was completed. This matter has since been resolved and the vaccination of health workers has now resumed. We subsequently finalized a contract for the supply of 31 million doses of the J&J vaccines. At the same time, you might well know that we also finalized as a continent now through the Africa Vaccination Acquisition Task Team that we set up, finalized an agreement for 220 million doses for the rest of the continent. However, we have learned in the past week that the delivery of this batch of vaccines will be delayed as a result of an FDA directive to Johnson & Johnson following the inspection of one of their facilities that raised concern at that facility were partners of J&J. Following finalization of the contract with Johnson & Johnson, we've also finalized a contract with Pfizer for the supply of 20 million vaccine doses with an additional allocation from COVAX of nearly 1.4 million doses. The first shipment of the Pfizer vaccine was received earlier this week. It should be noted that negotiations with manufacturers were protracted as we had to ensure that the terms of the contract were consistent with our laws and were not detrimental to our national interests. It also required that we set up a no-fault compensation scheme through which those who experience severe adverse effects following vaccination can claim damages. We've now finalized the contracts for sufficient doses to vaccinate 41.5 million people. The estimated times for the delivery of the vaccines depends on several factors, many of which are beyond our control. The contractual delivery schedule, as per the information shared by manufacturers, is as follows, as you wanted to know. In Q2 of 2021, we are scheduled to receive 3 million Johnson & Johnson doses, 4.5 million Pfizer doses from our contract with Pfizer, 1.4 million Pfizer doses through the COVAX facility. In Q3, as you wanted to know, we are scheduled to receive 9.1 million Johnson & Johnson doses, 8.5 million Pfizer doses. In Q4, we're scheduled to receive 19.1 million J&J doses, that is Johnson & Johnson, and 7 million Pfizer doses. In total, we are therefore scheduled to receive 31.2 million Johnson & Johnson doses and 21.4 million Pfizer doses, including the COVAX allocation that we are entitled to. As a country, we want to manufacture vaccines locally against this pandemic and future pandemics. It is for this reason that South Africa and India proposed the TRIPS waiver at the World Trade Organization to enable manufacturing of COVID-19 vaccines in developing countries. The proposal is now supported by more than 100 countries. And now we welcome the statement by the United States administration that it will support the TRIPS waiver on intellectual property protection for COVID-19 vaccines. Now, this is a victory for South Africa. It goes to show the influence we have as a country, working together with others, that our voice and messages have weight because they are rational, they are progressive, and they are meant to benefit people on our continent as well as in developing economies around the world. That is the influence we have. Such a waiver should facilitate effective transfer of intellectual property, technology, and know-how on mutually beneficial terms. This will ensure production is ramped up across many countries to ensure timely, affordable, and equitable access to diagnostics, vaccines, and therapeutics. And it fits in very well with what we've been saying, that vaccines should be seen as a public good. Now, we wait for our negotiators who are going to negotiate the text at the World Trade Organization to make sure that our objective in this regard is realized, that vaccines should be made available more broadly, and vaccine imperialism and nationalism by your more developed economy countries should come to an end. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President. The first supplementary is the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, I'm sure you agree that all that matters now is vaccines and arms. Anything else is just simply waffle. Vaccines secured means nothing if we don't actually have them. Promises of 40 million vaccinated by the end of the year mean nothing if we cannot physically do it. Now, you've just announced, to much fanfare and clapping from your benches, that we'll be receiving 325,000 Pfizer shots a week for the rest of the month. But if you do the calculations, you'll see we need to do this every 2 days for the rest of the year to reach your own 40 million target. Now, consider that the sum total of the last 4 months has only been 340,000. Do you see the maths issue here, Mr. President? Do you see why we cannot believe you when you tell us the things that you've just said? But perhaps the big question is, do you really care? Because you're so caught up in the internal battles in the ANC while this pandemic rages across South Africa. You said you didn't want to be seen as a weak president. You said you didn't want to split the ANC. Well, you've done both very successfully. So well done on that. You're busy waging a factional war while a third wave looms in South Africa. We're now in May, and your ANC government, you're clapping on the benches here, have not administered a single dose. The 800,000 has been done by the Sisonke project. There are still many, many healthcare workers who remain unvaccinated. Now, before you bang on about vaccine imperialism again, let me tell you that South Africa's current ranking for vaccines administered is 33. That's 33rd, not in the world, that's the 33rd in Africa, behind Sierra Leone, Sudan, Somalia, and Zambia. South Africans want to know when they're getting vaccinated, and you have failed them. So my question is, Mr. President, given that you've now imperiled the lives of 800,000 healthcare workers and millions of vulnerable citizens as we head into winter and a third wave, will you take responsibility for the lives lost due to this failure? And if not, Mr. President, then
you
who
have taken
should
more
take
time than you
responsibility?
have allocated to me. Mr. President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm just wondering what Mr. Steenhuisen ate at lunch, because it does seem like he's a very angry young man, and I just don't know what he ate. But let me just say, without going through the waffle that he's just articulated here, waffle of factional battles and all that, which have nothing to do with you. When you were involved in your own battles in the Democratic Alliance, you never heard a single one of us say anything. We did not comment because it's not our space. What happens in the Democratic Alliance is your business. And what is happening in the ANC is also not your business. It is ANC business. Now, having put that aside, let me say the following to you. We're not the only country that has been shortchanged, if you like, when it comes to vaccines. Now, we stored a lot of reliance on Johnson & Johnson because it is made here. And the mishaps that we have suffered have been completely out of our hands. The deaths of 6 people in the United States that got our own authority to say stop the vaccination process was completely unforeseen. There are some people who say, well, we should have just gone ahead. It didn't really matter. But we've tended to listen to our experts, we've tended to listen to our scientists and take advice from them. And you possibly would have wanted us to act like cowboys and just do whatever we could have concluded ourselves. We are not oriented in that way. We listened to our experts, and it was due to that delay that emanated from the United States that our experts here felt, our authority here felt, we should stop and pause. And we knew we were not pausing for a long time. But just as our own delivery was meant to come through, the FDA in the United States identified a flaw in one of the facilities that is a partner to Johnson & Johnson. And they stopped that. They said that should also stop. Now, that also stopped our own delivery from our own South African base in Gqeberha at the Aspen factory. We were meant to get our own batches so that we carry on. We've lost time, we know that. Do we care? Of course we care. What have we been doing since this pandemic started? You have not been in control and in running this whole project of protecting and defending the people of South Africa. But we have been. We have been in the trenches and doing precisely the task of defending and protecting our people. So it's very easy for you to say we are number this, number that. We've had our own, both objective and subjective challenges, and we're addressing them, and now the process is going to unfold. The Sisonke process is part of our national project. It's not a DA project, it's a national project. We're all involved in it. So we are proceeding with all that and proceeding with the vaccination of our people. You may wish us ill, but there are many people in our country who wish us well. We are here to protect the lives of South Africans. And that is what has been my key preoccupation as President of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, President. Honorable Jacobs, it's your turn to ask the second supplementary question.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, our government subscribes to providing the best options for all the people of South Africa, especially with regards to the threats posed by COVID-19. Now, we have heard at numerous times that options and decisions taken by government are informed by the latest, applicable, and peer-reviewed sciences. And you have just reiterated that here, Mr. President. So let us thank you very much for finalizing the contracts with the vaccine manufacturers, a total of 52.6 million doses. Having heard what Honorable Steenhuisen says here, I can understand or get to realize that he just cannot comprehend the medical sciences involved here and the complexities. But we thank you for forging ahead, Mr. President. Now, can you please put us at ease on the ability of government to roll out this vaccination program? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thank you for your sentiments and remarks, and also the realization that the acknowledgement rather, that we've always relied on science and work on peer-reviewed processes. With regard to putting everybody at ease in relation to the rollout, we have, working together with our partners, the private sector, the religious sector, the labor sector, the business sector, and many other sectors, we have crafted and developed a very, very effective vaccination program that is now going to unfold as these batches of vials, doses become available. The plan is in place, the centers are in place, the people have been trained, the transportation has been put in place to transport all these doses at the right temperatures. The logistics have been clearly worked out. We've been working very, very closely with the private sector. The medical aid schemes are part of this process. And we did say right at the beginning that we are embarking on an unprecedented process that this country has never ever seen. And rather than have people throw stones at those who are involved, rather than distract us from what we need to do, we said, let us see this as a national effort. Let us all get involved. But others choose to sit on the sidewalks and throw stones at those who are involved in this process. And I continue to invite all South Africans. We've never done this before, to have a vaccination process that is going to involve millions and millions of our people, more or less all at one go, even if it takes a number of months. We need to work together. So I can assure South Africans that the program is in place. Vaccines are going to be made available. And we are storing a lot of hope and confidence in the availability of these vaccines. As they come on a periodic basis, they are made available, that we are going to be able to implement our vaccination program. It's a robust one, And it is going to reach into the real heart of our country, in the rural areas, in the urban areas, and all over. That is going to happen. The delays have had very little to do with our own ineptitude. They've had more to do with objective reasons that I have alluded to. So the vaccination process will get underway. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The third supplementary question is asked by Honorable Shivambo.
No, thanks, Deputy Speaker. You know, the vaccination of, this vaccination plan of the president, like many of his promises and plans, does not make any sense. It doesn't. Because in our estimation, you will need a minimum of 50 billion rands to vaccinate 67% of the population, which is the herd immunity. But the National Treasury has only allocated 4.3 billion rands for this financial year to vaccinate the entirety of South Africa, and that includes the purchase and the delivery of the vaccination, storage, the administering, the buying of syringes, and so on and so forth. And you are saying that you are going to vaccinate 41 million South Africans when you have only allocated 4.3 billion. And you cannot tell us about the contingency budget, because a contingency budget is allocated to things that are not foreseen. We have known for more than 12 months now that there is a pandemic that requires intervention.
Honorable Shivambo.
Why is there no budget that is allocated to the rollout of the vaccine
Honorable
program?
Shivambo, you have
are
exceeded
just
your
throwing
time.
numbers without a clear context.
Honorable Shivambo,
how are you going to
you have
finance that?
exceeded your
Because
time.
It's only
I'm
4.3
muting you.
billion that has been allocated thus far.
Honorable Shivambo, please look at your watch when you speak. No, you know the time you are allocated.
On a point of order, Deputy
Please,
Speaker.
please.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Stay with your time allocated.
When we finish with this process, you must go and check the times that you gave to the leader of the official opposition.
Honorable
to ask
member.
the question and the time that you gave us.
Honorable
it looks
member,
like
I don't give anybody time.
We're asking relevant questions.
I don't give anybody
Please be patient
time.
with us.
No.
Questions
No.
that are going to guide the country.
No, you are out of
Unlike
order.
this direction that
You are
have done.
You are out of order. Honorable members, you are out of order. Firstly, this time is not given by me. All I do, you have been given this time, you have no authority to exceed the allocated time. By 25 seconds yourself, for example. This is out of order. You have no basis to object to that. You should stick to your time, and I'm not going to please anybody by not doing so. That's very clear. It should stay clear with you. Honorable President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, thank you. The simple answer I can give to Honorable Shivambo is that when it comes to securing the health of our people by providing vaccines, the South African government is going to make sure that we pull out all stops and we provide the finance to do precisely that. And if it will be necessary for the Minister of Finance to come back to Parliament for either a supplementary budget or to come forward in October for the medium term budget statement, policy statement, that will happen. We are not ever going to sacrifice the health of South Africans in relation to this pandemic. We have never done so in the past. We were able to face the HIV pandemic and embarked on a process of mobilizing resources so that we can save the lives of our people. And by and large, we have succeeded in doing precisely that. With the provision of antiretrovirals, which we now provide to millions of South Africans. And similarly, with this pandemic, money, financial resources are never going to be the issue. We are going to save the lives of South Africans. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last supplementary question to this question is by Honorable van Staden.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, regarding the vaccine rollout plan, where targets were kept moving and changing since the announcement of a first rollout plan in February this year, and the announcement of a new rollout plan by the Minister of Health on the 30th of March this year, where new targets were set again with different numbers of people to be vaccinated by the end of the year, and the constant changing of this program, can you, Honourable President, today please give the correct information regarding the rollout plan and what the targets are for the total number of people to be vaccinated by the end of this year? And what guarantee can the Honourable President give to South Africans today that the current rollout plan will not change again to disregard confusion among not only healthcare workers, but also among South Africans? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to say to Honourable van Staden, the change to the plan was occasioned by a number of factors, and the Minister of Health announced a revised rollout plan, and that rollout plan is going to be implemented. And if there's a need for change, it will be communicated in time and in advance. I do not, where I sit now, believe that there will be any need for change. I would like to believe that we've got a robust plan, an implementable plan, and a plan that I believe will be effective and will be able to reach out to the various numbers that we've announced. We did say that we want to achieve population immunity. And yes, the scientists have arrived at the number that will constitute population immunity, which is some 40 million South Africans or so. I would have preferred, and I would prefer that we go even beyond that. But that is going to depend, obviously, on the pace of the rollout plan, as well as the availability of the doses or the vaccines. I don't believe that it's going to be changing on an ongoing basis. However, if it does need to change, there will be very good reasons for it to change, and we will make sure that information is communicated in a way that it is not confusing to anyone. The vaccination program will be getting underway. Well, it is already underway, and it will gather momentum as we move on, as to be able to give South Africans certainty about the way it will work out. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next question, number 3, has been asked by Honorable Malema. Honorable President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The first goal of our vaccination program is to ensure that we rapidly reduce the number of people who get very sick or die from COVID-19. The second goal, as I was saying earlier, is to achieve population immunity. It is estimated that population immunity will be achieved when around 67% of our country's population has been achieved, which, as I was saying earlier, has been estimated to be around 40 million people. To achieve the first goal of preventing as much COVID-19 related disease, the hospitalization and death as rapidly as possible, the National Vaccination Program will prioritize those at the greatest risk. The evidence shows that age is the single factor most strongly associated with the severity of COVID-19 disease, and therefore phase 2 of the vaccination program will target all people who are over 60 years of age. At the same time, it will also target people of 40 years and older in vulnerable settings, such as frontline workers. Phase 3 of the program will then target the rest of the adult population. The selection of vaccines for use in South Africa requires, amongst other things, that they be approved by the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority as being effective against the dominant strains of SARS-CoV-2 in the country. Currently, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson vaccines have been registered by SAPRA. And as indicated in my earlier reply, these vaccines have been selected for procurement. The prices that government has contracted to pay for the vaccines are $10 per dose for Johnson & Johnson and the same for the Pfizer dose. A wide range of vaccination sites have been identified. These include, amongst others, primary healthcare clinics, community pharmacies, general practitioners, centers, public and private hospitals, and travel clinics. Vaccinations will also be done by mobile teams at mass vaccination sites that have been set up or that are going to be set up and are being set up at conference centers and other facilities. And in some workplaces, such as government departments, mines, and factories, we've been very fortunate that a number of employers have said that they are also prepared to pay for the setting up of these centers in their own facilities or premises. All vaccination sites must meet certain legislative requirements and go through an accreditation process. By the end of April, the Department of Health has enrolled 3,357 accredited vaccination sites. A comprehensive logistics as well as a supply chain plan is in place. This includes all supply chain preparations and activities from when the vaccine arrives in the country until it is made available for vaccination at each vaccination site. A critical path of this is an effective cold chain to maintain the safety as well as the efficacy of the vaccine and to match demand with supply and enable the tracing and tracking of vaccines. Now, the electronic vaccine data system, or what we call the EVDS, is the backbone of our vaccination program because it provides end-to-end solutions that is used to digitally capture each event in the vaccination process and provides data to monitor all vaccinations that are administered. And this we also have learned from the manufacturers. I went to the manufacturing factory in Gqeberha and saw how they calibrate the vaccine doses. And each vial has a number. Each vial is clearly identified, and they will know where each dose or vial has ended up. Highly digitized, and we are seeking to do something that's similar with our vaccination program. Every person to be vaccinated will need to register and will receive details of the date and time slot for vaccination. For many South Africans who do not have access to the internet, both digital and walk-in systems will be used for registration. And callers may also register on a toll-free helpline. Provision has been made for alternative capturing of a unique identifier for individuals who do not have an identity document. Now, the magnitude of the COVID-19 vaccination program requires dedicated staff at both national, provincial, and district levels. Based on the experience of phase 1, staffing requirements and norms for vaccination sites have been estimated to guide planning, budgeting, and recruitment. These norms may vary depending on the specifics of each particular site. Government itself is committed to ensuring that every person 18 years and older will be able to be assisted in this regard. The costs will be covered from public funds for uninsured people and medical aids for those who are insured as part of the prescribed minimum benefits. This will be the first time in South Africa's history that a national vaccination program aimed at adults will be rolled out. It is an enormous undertaking that will require the support, the cooperation of all parts of society. Now, a comprehensive plan is in place, resources have been mobilized, and a steady supply of vaccines have been procured so that every adult should have the opportunity to go through this process. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next supplementary is by Honorable Malim.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, I know that this matter was raised with you earlier, and I'm told that the Deputy Speaker didn't allow it. It is in your own wisdom if you want to. Because standing there here, I'm confused if you are legitimate in Parliament, since your membership of the party which lends you a seat in Parliament has been suspended. And anything else that you do now, even when you know you are no longer a member of your party, will amount to fraudulent activities. Nevertheless, Mr. President, I don't understand whether you guys are involved in transaction or in saving life. Because Sputnik and Sinovac have proven to work and has been subjected to peer reviews, and many countries are now using Sputnik. But you are hell-bent at feeding us with Pfizer and J&J. For what reason, I don't know, and the only reason we can suspect is that you are a shrewd businessman who might be prioritizing money over the lives of our people. And I plead with your conscience that please do the right thing. Let's save lives. Leave transactions aside. It's not a point of a transactions now.
All right, just
put your money-loving attitude aside.
Honorable Malema, hold on, please. There's a point of order. What's the point of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker. I'm rising on Rule 85. The person who was speaking before has cast aspersions on the character of the President that he's making deals for his own self-interest. That part must be dealt with a substantive motion. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Malema, that remark as referred to, you know it is out of order, right?
No, the President will decide to answer that or not.
No. Honorable Malema, this is a matter for
you. Are starting to defend transactions now.
Let me speak.
Are you here to defend lives or you want to defend transactions now?
Honorable Malema,
I'm asking a simple question. I'm asking a question whether they are involved in transactions or in programs of saving lives.
Honorable Malema, a presiding officer is asking you to withdraw a statement that casts aspersion according to Rule 85. Could you do that, please, and then proceed?
What is the statement saying?
The honorable...
The statement, Deputy Chair, it's a question.
The honorable member who rose, whether by disguised as a question or as a statement, it is out of order when you imply that the President might be involved in things that are not legal or illegal, practical. So if you don't do it by way of a substantive motion, it is not appropriate to even insinuate it. Can you withdraw it, please?
On a point of order.
Okay, I'm withdrawing with transaction. I'm withdrawing
it. Should I answer?
No, I'm still asking.
What are you asking?
It's my turn. The President says, can he answer? It's still my time. Why are you treating me like I'm a stepchild? What's your problem?
Yeah. Honorable member. Honorable member, can you behave for once? Please.
Not for once, I'm always behaving. You are an old man that always misbehaves in this parliament.
In the first place, your time is here, and you will speak.
It's not true. You stopped me because someone called point of order.
Yes,
and will not take you anywhere.
Listen,
you guys are involved in transactions. You are stealing money of our people. Your
anger management is needed here.
Honorable Cyril Malima.
Order, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Cyril Malima. Ako mamele utataiswe kapingena hasi hao mona.
Where chisa upila uchisa man. Why don't you cool down chisa? You are perpetuating.
Please, man. Honorable member.
Why don't you cool down chisa? You are perpetually hot.
Oh, no. Honorable members, you are being disrupted by your own members now.
This thing that the president, every time he comes here, all of you are heated and you are defending him when majority of our people are dying. It's a problem, that thing. It must come to an end.
There's a disruption around here. We can't hear you properly. I'm trying to protect you so that you can proceed.
No, I'm disrupted by the president. The president disrupted me.
Hey, Mramalim. Please, all
right.
Just calm down.
I'm with you.
Yeah, now. Can you be in order and proceed? These remarks you are making here will follow them up. Proceed and ask your question. And don't make allegations about the chair that are ill-founded, out of order, and not appropriate to make.
It's the job of parliamentarians to ask executive questions, including uncomfortable questions. Now, my point is...
Uncomfortable, yes,
but not out of the does not have the interest of our people at heart, because all of these other vaccines that are working, he would have by now procured them and made sure that they are distributed in South Africa. Why is SAPRA taking forever to approve an emergency use of Siphonek and Sputnik? What plans are there to include the private sector to make sure that we vaccinate as many people as possible, because we know that the ANC government has got no capacity to vaccinate as many people as possible.
Your time has expired. Your time has expired. Yes.
So those are my questions, Deputy Speaker, including the question on transactions. Do they want money or do they want to save lives?
Honorable member, can you be in order? And we'll follow up these things you are saying there from the virtual platform. Honorable President, please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I thought that Honorable Malema had concluded with this question. That's why I asked you whether I should answer. And I'm sorry that he took offense at my inquiry, which was to you. We are not in the business of making transactions over the lives of our people. We enter into transactions to purchase vaccines, to acquire vaccines, to save the lives of our people. We do not enter into transactions to advance our own interests, either as individuals or as any other entity. I just want to make that very clear to Honorable. On the issue of other vaccines, there are a number of other vaccines that are in the process of being assessed. And as you yourself correctly said, Honorable Malema, you know that SAPRA, our authority, Health Products Authority, yes, is in the process of assessing a number of vaccines. Sputnik included, Sinopharm included. And as we have often said, we are involved in discussions and negotiations with a number of vaccine manufacturers or developers that also include the two. And we have taken care to make sure that those vaccines that have been developed in our fellow BRICS countries are vaccines that we should also focus attention on. And I know for a fact that those two countries have taken some time to develop various relationships, because relationships have to be developed and partners here and so forth, and thereafter to present the product for testing and assessment by SAPRA. And that is in the process. I am not able to answer for SAPRA, and I do not know the full details of the scientific processes that they get involved in, but I do know that they take their work very seriously, and they are also aware of the urgency that this moment presents to all of us, and that urgency also underpins the way they do their work. So I have all the confidence. I know that they will do the best for the people of South Africa. We are all here.
Can you please switch off Honorable Stoner, please, man?
We do not play games with the lives of our people. From the onset of this pandemic, all that we've been focused on is how best we can save the lives of our people. Some of us don't sleep much, Honorable Malema, because we are continuously concerned, worried, and agonizing about the lives of South Africans and how best we can secure the lives of the people of South Africa. It is a task and indeed a burden that you may take lightly, but some of us take it very seriously. And we will not play games with the lives of South Africans. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President.
But, Deputy Speaker, I didn't answer my question on cooperation with the private sector because of the incapacity of the state.
Well, I thought that had been included in the earlier answer where I was saying the development of our rollout plan has enjoyed the participation of all our stakeholders. The private sector has been a key participant. You may be interested to know that almost on a daily basis, meetings are held in one shape, form, or another, starting off with the Deputy President leading the interministerial committee that deals with vaccines. At the departmental level, the same obtains, as well as at the NCCC, we get reports, but more importantly, in relation just to the vaccine program, there is a team that is just completely focused on the program, and it includes the private sector participants. It is interesting to hear Honorable Malema seeking to know about the participation of the private sector. They are at the heart of this. So is labor, and so are other sectors in our society. And this is one thing that we can be proud of, just like we should be proud of NEDLAC. And in this case, it is an implementation arm of our program where all are involved in the way that I've identified or I've set them out. Private sector, the churches or the religious sector, community-based organizations, labor, and many others. Our scientists and our experts, they are all part of this. So when it comes to the robustness of the team that is overseeing the implementation of the program, I don't have sleepless nights. I know that it is in good hands, and we've got the best brains that are involved in all this. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much,
Deputy Speaker.
Mr. President. Before I give to honorable members, every time presiding officers begin the House, they start with reading movements of members. New members, it is announced, including in whose office they affirmed or took an oath. If we don't mention anybody there, please don't smuggle movements that do not exist, with the greatest of respect. So this is the requirement, that you must formally let us know that there's movement. If you don't, we assume it doesn't exist, so no one else can claim that it exists. This is important. The rules that have been formed here are not for me or for any individual person. They are for the entire House. So let's play by the House. As whips, given your understanding of the allocation of time, this has been approved and agreed to. You can't come and turn the House into a bargaining council. Speak to Honorable Ngaisi if you want some tips and where to do that. Kindly save the House. It's time to deal with substantive issues in the House. And kindly mind your language. Honorable members, we take exception to crude, out of order language that is rude, that is unparliamentary, that has been declared so frequently. We can't be repeating those every time we are in the House. I'm pleading with you that it's not appropriate. The next
point of order.
Second
point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Yes, what's the point of order?
You're just waffling now. What are you saying?
Can you take your seat?
No, but you're waffling now.
There is no we are Delela, Honorable Shivambo.
I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. You're waffling. What are you saying?
Honorable member, take your seat. If you don't understand, if you did not hear, take your seat.
Hey, but you must stop waffling as well, because you must speak to things.
Honorable member, you are saying I'm waffling, all right? Now listen here.
You're wasting our time. Don't speak to me like that. Don't speak to me like that. That language to me.
No, you're out of order. No, honorable member.
How you want to speak to us?
Honorable member. Honorable member.
No, what Delela then?
Honorable member,
no, but how do we say Delela?
Honorable Shivambu, you are out of order
to use that language. Who gives you the right to use that language?
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Shivambu, it's unparliamentary what you are saying.
I'm muting you now because you are out of
Deputy
order.
Speaker.
Yeah. Honorable
Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker.
Who's there?
It's me, Julius here.
Honorable, who's speaking?
Julius.
Ngola.
Manje kwenzekeni uthini manje Honorable Malema?
He's asking on which item are you? He's asking that. It's as simple as that. Parliament works according to agenda. There is an adopted agenda. Now, you can't just speak. We don't hear what you are saying.
Yeah.
Hey, what's a good ease?
Okay, all right. Honorable member, take your seat too. We have heard you. If you have missed the agenda we were on, it is unfortunate. I'm not going back there. We are proceeding to the item on the agenda, and I'm going to request Honorable Dlomo to ask the second supplementary.
Yeah, but Deputy Speaker, please, that's what this honorable.
Julius, keep quiet.
A point of order.
Keep quiet, man. We're not running this parliament.
Honorable members, please, can you just be quiet?
Order.
Take your seat.
Order, Deputy Speaker.
Please. Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is parliamentary. When you break the rule, when you break the honorable member, honorable member, honorable member, when you break the rules, you must expect that it's not going to be appropriate when you break the rules, okay?
But what if the rulings are broken?
Yes, honorable member.
And what if the presiding officer is breaking the rules?
Deputy Speaker, order.
Honorable members, I'll give 1, 2. What's the point of order?
And myself.
We are raising a point of order here to say that there is an agenda of questions to the president. It's only one item on the agenda of today's sitting. And in the middle, you stand there with Delela and then you waffle there. That is what you did. And we're asking you, what do you do that? Why would Delela Parliament so?
Honorable Shivambo.
Because that is not part of the agenda. Why are you doing that? Where in the Parliament agenda today does it say that you're going to waffle here and speak about things that are not part of the agenda?
Honorable
Shivambo.
Honorable Shivambo.
But listen to Honorable Shivambo. Lechisa, uko umame.
Honorable Hope.
Point of order.
Based on the hybrid rules, members he had several times opened the mic without being recognized.
Yeah.
Deputy Speaker, may you please take action on that because it's a complete violation of hybrid rules to open your mic and speak without being recognized.
Yes.
But he must listen. He has to listen as a president.
Now, again, he has just done it.
It's the third time. Honorable Ndosi, you are breaking this rule for the third time. You are unrepentant on this matter. You know it is the breaking of the rules. Honorable Hodebe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm rising on Rule 78.3. Really, no member of Parliament must undermine the authority of the presiding officer. I think what has happened now is precisely that. Because you are giving the authority to chair the House, no one must try to tell you how to do the job. And then number 2, Chair, once you have made a ruling, the members know that if they are uncomfortable with that ruling, they know where they have to take it to the Rules Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Your point of order is sustained and it will be followed up. It will be followed up with a formal ruling and actioning. Honorable members, I requested Honorable Dromo to ask the next supplementary question. This is the second question.
Mongameli wethu kule comprehensive plan kungabe khona yini into ethi uhulumeni wethu usuqalile ukufocusa kwi-local manufacturing yemithi nemijovo. Siyakwamukela siyakujabulela uhlelo lokugonywa oluqhubekayo njengamanje kodwa mongameli eminingi yale mithi nemijovo esinayo silindele ibhanoyi noma umkhumbi ophuma kwamanye amazwe ukuletha le mijovo la ekhaya. Kanti ke mongameli ukusona edlulile wake wasixoxela ukuthi ugqoke isudenzi walapha eSouth Africa okuyinto esijabulelayo kakhulu leyo. Uqinisa umnotho, uqashwa kwabantu ekhaya nokwehlisa ukweswela. Zimi kanjani mongameli izinhlelo zikahulumeni wethu zokusungula imboni eyakha imithi nemijovo la eSouth Africa for ukusizakala abantu bethu nezilwane zethu esizifuyile singalolu umkhonto mongameli uzuphelele etsheni. I just want to say in closing, it's important that parties that are well represented here must listen to their members who sit in the Portfolio Committee of Health. Just yesterday, we had SAPRA making a presentation, and the ignorance that is actually coming out of this meeting, it's actually very concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Jomo Ngiyabonga. Eksempeleni ukuthi si South Africa sizimisela ukuthi imithi eminingi evikela impilo zabantu nemijovo sifuna ukuthi iyenze la ekhaya. Amanye amazwe sebayitholile indlela yokuthi bazenzele imithi nemijovo. Bona ngokwabo bayazenzela. iIndia ilizwe elinjalo namanye la eAfrica yithi kuphela esikwazi okwamanje ukuthi sibe nendlela yokuthi sikwazi ukumanufacture ama vaccines kodwa usasele nje through our facility BioVac yona enze indlela eziningi zokuthi ikwazi nayo ukuthi ikwazi ukwenza imijovo. Sifuna ukuthi i-capacity yabo ye-BioVac la sihlangane khona ne-private sector nohulumeni as their owners nayo ikhule, sikwazi ukuthi si-develophe ama-vaccines wethu. Ngiye ngathi uMinister Late Nzimande ngathi njengoba ehambisa uhlelo lwe-science and technology ngathi masike sicele ama-scientists ethu ukuthi bake bayibuke kahle le ndaba, lolu daba lokwenza imijovo la ekhaya. Namanje iqalile leyo process yokuthi ama-scientists wethu zama ukuthola indlela sokuenza ukuthi si-develophe ama-vaccines ngoba kunezimbili. Eyokuqala is the developer, and at the same time, the second one is the manufacturer. We have developed the capability to manufacture vaccines. The BioVac facility, as well as Aspen and a number of others, they are able, when given all the formulas, they are able to manufacture vaccines. What we need is to develop our own vaccines, and this is where our scientists, our medical experts come in. Already we develop our own animal vaccines. The animals that we have in our country are vaccinated from time to time against a variety of diseases. And many of those are manufactured here, and we just don't even need to leapfrog. We just need to move to the second level. And with the TRIPS waiver now being negotiated at the World Trade Organization, we are going to be able, yes, to manufacture in a big way, but it is the development side. Now, when it comes to the development side of vaccines, we held a meeting the other day. As you know, South Africa has been identified as the champion of COVID-19. We held a meeting where we spoke about Africa's capacity, developing capacity, that Africa should develop its own capacity to develop and to conceptualize vaccines. We are busy with that. We've seen it as a major challenge. We first saw it, if I may say so, with the PPEs. The PPEs, the development, the manufacturing rather of PPEs was largely outside of our continent. And within a short space of time, we saw a number of African-based companies and entities beginning to develop and manufacture their own PPEs, from ventilators right through to cloth masks and so forth. So the capability resides on our continent, and all that it has needed is that there should be a necessity, and as they say in the classics, necessity is the mother of invention. And that's where we are being led to. That's exactly the direction we are going. Many leaders on the continent have now united in saying Africa must develop its own capacity to develop vaccines. And we in South Africa are taking it very seriously, and government is going to lead in this and work with the private sector to make sure ukuthi yonke le mijovo kuma-pandemic, kule pandemic esikuyo manje nakuma-pandemic azolandela, ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi leyo mijovo iyenzwe la eSouth Africa. And for us, it's a security matter. We have seen how the lack of vaccines that we make ourselves has posed a real serious security challenge, which has sovereign implications, because we wait for others outside of our own borders to make vaccines available. So we are at their mercy. And we now are saying we need to be doing it ourselves. And the message is spreading, the noise is growing, and the capability will soon reside in Africa. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The third supplementary is asked by the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. President, history has shown us that the only people who should be worried about angry young men are out-of-touch old men. And I'm very happy to give you the recipe for the lunchtime, because maybe if you had a bit more fire in your belly, the country wouldn't be in the trouble that it is in at the moment. Mr. President, I'm sure you're watching what's happening in India with some concern, although you are lucky enough to have been vaccinated. The only way we're going to prevent that from happening here in South Africa is through a widespread vaccination program here. And yes, people in South Africa are angry. They're angry because your government has failed so spectacularly to roll out a vaccination program in South Africa. Many countries around the world and the continent are nearly finished their programs or very well into them, and we're yet to put a single government jab and a single arm in South Africa. So much for science, Dr. Jacobs. We're so far behind the rest of the world. I don't know what science you studied, but it clearly wasn't worth it. Mr. President, what preparations have you made? What preparations have you made in terms of vaccine procurement and new surges in transmission, and particularly the threat of the new Indian variant?
Mr. President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The variant that is being experienced in India is most worrying. It's most worrying because it is engulfing the entire country, and at the same time as some of the people from that country travel around the world, they are found to have contracted the disease. And obviously we are watching this, but we are not only watching, we're taking steps to ensure that, one, we are getting prepared, and the National Coronavirus Command Council was meant to meet yesterday, and we said, let us meet when we have all the information, when we have all the processes that we can immediately embark on. And so that is in process. And in this regard, we will be pleased to know that we rely on our scientists' knowledge, on our medical advisory committee that guides our process of dealing with the virus. So all that is being looked at most closely. We are concerned, but we are also concerned for the Indians. And it is for that reason that we have pledged our solidarity with them, and we're seeking to give them as much assistance as we possibly can. We will soon be forwarding some assistance to them because they need help, and we are pleased to know that they are getting help from a number of countries around the world, and we will also be assisting them with ventilators. We will also be assisting them with PPEs and pledging our solidarity with them. And we do this because it is the right thing to do. And at the same time, we are studying, our scientists are in the process of studying the variant that they are going through so that we can understand it more fully and how it mutates. And so all that is being done. So we're not sleeping on the job. We're not sitting on our laurels. We have not hidden our heads in the sand. We are busy, right in the ring, dealing with this matter on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Mkhuleko Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, notwithstanding the importance of international solidarity, which you have alluded to insofar as the Indian case is concerned, and of course, at the same time, the interventions of assistance that you have spoken to are most welcome. However, Mr. President, the flip side of the coin is that the mutation of this virus into the many variants that we have in South Africa, having experienced its own, has got a direct impact on the efficacy of the vaccinations which are currently available and at play around the world. And so a lack of speed and urgency puts people at risk. In the country, you've got us in the lockdown, but we are yet to hear you, Mr. President, on decisive steps in ensuring the curbing of the movement of people between South Africa and India. And therefore the question becomes, how are you going to protect South Africans from this variant if you do not have a travel ban on India, while South Africa, which had its own variant, found itself on travel bans around the world? So the support we give to India must be reciprocated by government in that case. Will your government impose a travel ban on India? I thank you.
Honorable Shangwa, nawe manje weqa isikhathi osinikezi. Ngicela nibheke amawatch.
Ngiyaxolisa baba. Ngiyaxolisa.
Ngiyabonga. Thank you. Mr. President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, thank you. Honorable Shangwa, thank you very much for your question, because your question revolves around precisely what the National Coronavirus Command Council is currently seized with. We are looking more closely and scientifically at what this the variant from India is all about, but we are also looking at how we should respond. And our response could also include precisely what you have said. A number of people have actually been saying, impose the ban, impose the ban. And we are in the process of examining the whole process and the efficacy of doing so. We pride ourselves with taking decisions based on science. And obviously, right now, there are no direct flights between ourselves and India. That helps a bit. But at the same time, we do now need to address the issue, which is going to be addressed in just days when from the Medical Advisory Committee point of view and an entity which we call Net Joints in government, which combines all our executing arms or institutions will come forward. The question has been posed to them, and that is now going to be brought forward to us as an answer. So you pose the right question, and we are going to be addressing precisely that. But thank you very much for what you have said. Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next question is number 4. It's asked by Honorable B.A. Khade. Mr. President.
Thank you. The conflict in Cabo Delgado province in Mozambique has caused great death. It has also caused suffering and trauma to the people in that area. It has not only damaged the local economy, but also threatens the stability of the broader region. It is therefore vital that the countries of the Southern African region and indeed the African continent assist in both ending the conflict and also assessing and addressing rather the social, economic and political factors fueling the violence. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, has stated the AU's strong condemnation of these terrorist attacks. An extraordinary double Troika summit of SADC was held in Maputo on the 8th of April to address the security situation in Mozambique. The summit directed the technical assessment by SADC of the situation in the affected area, that it should be conducted within a week, and that a report should be submitted to the next extraordinary SADC Organ Troika Summit, so that the summit is then able to deliberate on a proportional regional response. The summit, which was scheduled for the 29th of April, had to be postponed, and a new date is yet to be announced. The international community, and in particular SADC and the AU, has shown a firm commitment to contribute to the stabilization of the situation. The SADC Organ Troika is seized with finding a lasting solution to the conflict and to ensure that in finding a lasting solution, we resolve this conflict, but also ensure that the Mozambican people are able to live in peace and security and are able to benefit from the natural resources within their country. And Mozambique has been supported in a number of efforts in dealing with this challenge from a number of countries in the world, and we have been giving them moral support and every support that we possibly can, so that we continue to strengthen them. But SADC is now going to examine precisely what steps now need to be taken going forward. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks to the President for the answer he has given. I think that first of all, Chairperson, we have to appreciate the work done by the President, in particular when he was chairing the AU, by coordinating all the heads of states of Africa and ensured that the African governments worked as a pack in fighting the pandemic. I think that as he responded to the previous questions, I think that appreciation was not elucid. So I think that we appreciate the work which you have done, Comrade President. Number two.
Point of order.
No, that's not close you again. Honorable.
I think, Deputy Speaker, I think this is a problem.
Yeah, it is. I agree with you on that. I agree with you. It's out of order. Yeah, all right.
But you can't have members who remain on the platform who behave that way.
Yeah. Okay.
On a point of order, Speaker.
Yes, honorable member.
He was not recognized. He just rose and spoke, and he didn't say anything.
Honorable members.
Comrade Hope did not ask to speak. He just stood up and spoke, and you did not say anything. Can you please call him to order, Deputy Speaker? Please.
That's a general rule, members. You know that. We must adhere to it all the time, irrespective of the circumstances. Yes. We continue that.
No.
Finish that.
No, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. When coming to this issue,
Peter Chairperson,
Deputy Speaker. When coming to you to the question, Deputy Speaker, I think that there is issue of insurgents which are carried out throughout the African continent. They do destabilize the development of the African continent. How can we forget what that colonial master Leopold II did in Congo, when he cut the limbs of the babies to encourage their parents to produce more rubber? Now, 100 years later, in Mozambique, the children are being beheaded because of the vast ruby deposits and the vast gas reserves which are there. But what is critical here is that not even a single shipment of the gas have been taken out of Mozambique, but already the investors like Total, they're already withdrawing from that aspect. So what I want to ask here is that where is the African standby force during this time? Because if these insurgencies are not quelled, the issue of the Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to be undermined. Because how can there be trading between the African countries when there are fights between those countries? I can make an example, Chair. Even up to this.
No, your time has expired. No.
All right. What is the AU and SADC doing to attract this foreign direct investment? Thank you.
Honorable President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We, as the SADC family of countries, including the AU, continue to want to attract investments to the various countries on our continent, but we in SADC want to attract investors to Southern Africa. And when companies such as Total and others withdraw as a result of the activities of insurgents, it is of great concern to us. And it is for that reason that countries in SADC were able to get together through the double troika to see how best we can respond to the challenges that Mozambique is going through. And the technical assessment team was set up, and it has done the assessment. It is now going to report to the heads of state when we next meet. And the idea and the issue of a standby force has always been present, and we are going to be looking at precisely what now needs to be done based on the assessment team's report. So what we seek to do is to secure the lives of our people in SADC, and much as it is happening in Mozambique, we are interested in making sure that we secure the lives of Mozambicans, but at the same time, we want to ensure that there is economic growth in our region, in our various countries, as well as on our continent. And one of the ways of engendering that is to bring in foreign direct investment, as Honorable Khatebe was saying. So we are focused on that, and we continue working at it. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next supplementary question, which is the second, is by Honorable Shivambo.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I'll be taking the question on behalf of Honorable Shivambo. I'm Honorable Snawa Tambo. Wait. So, Mr. President, in order to achieve its objective of silencing the guns in Africa, the AU established the Africa Standby Force, purportedly with the ability to be deployed rapidly to crisis-ridden areas to stop wars and save lives. Now, outside of your suspension from the ANC, you just stepped down as the chairperson of the AU, and during your tenure, we have observed rapid proliferation of conflicts in the continent, including the crisis in Mozambique. Has South Africa played any role in strengthening the African Standby Force? If you have, why is it that the force has been unable to intervene decisively in conflict-ridden areas? And will you specifically lobby for the deployment of that force to deal with the crisis in Mozambique? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yes, South Africa continues to act in concert and in partnership with various other member states of the AU, and we act within the broad parameters that are set out by our AU mother body. As it is now, you may well know that we have deployed our soldiers on the eastern part of the Congo. They are part of the forces that have been there for quite a while, acting together with a number of other countries like Malawi and Tanzania to secure the eastern Congo against insurgents. Now, we will never want to be lone actors and act alone on our own volition. We are a country that will always want to act against the aegis of our continental bodies and indeed our regional bodies. So in this regard, we are in full support of Mozambique. We are in full support of countries that are facing these challenges of insurgents, and we work with others to silence the guns on our continent. It has been unfortunate indeed, as we reported at the summit when I stepped down, that we have not been able to achieve our goal of silencing the guns, much as there has been an improvement in the guns of war throughout the continent, but we have not yet succeeded in silencing the guns, and much more work still needs to be done to ensure that the continent is at peace with itself. And in order to engender peace, obviously, various countries have to take up the responsibility of making sure that indeed there is peace. And when we are called upon to join a standby force, South Africa will always be ready to fulfill our own continental and regional obligations, but always acting in line with our regional or continental bodies. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The third supplementary is by Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Suspended President, I know our country has a bad character of waiting for things to get out of hand before acting. It was the case with COVID, it was the case with listeriosis. Now, I want to find out, Mr. President, that a crisis threatened South Africa.
No point of order, Deputy Speaker. Point of order, Deputy Speaker. No point of order.
What's the
point of order, Deputy Speaker? Deputy Speaker.
What's the point of?
Can I rise on a point of order?
Sorry?
Deputy Speaker. Point of order.
Who's
point of order, Deputy Speaker?
Yeah, I want to know who's speaking. Tell me who
it's
you're
here.
Honorable Ngola, please go ahead. What's the point of order?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the President of the Republic is elected in terms of the rules by the National Assembly.
Yeah.
And the removal of the President is encapsulated in the Constitution. Honorable Zungula has just said to the President, the suspended President, he is out of order and must be ruled as such. Thank you.
Honorable members, let's agree that the reference to all members, including the President when he's in the House. Honorable Hope, I'm addressing the issue that you are concerned about. Please, can you be in order, all of you? Honorable members, stop talking across the benches whilst the session is on. Honorable members, you know that you must address each other as members appropriately, Mr. or Honorable, and in the case of the President, similarly as well when he's in the House, and generally. So, Honorable Zungula, Zungula, ngicela ukuthi ungaqambi President angekho. What are you raising on, Honorable Member?
Rising on a point of order.
What's the point of order?
Deputy Speaker, for any member of Parliament to cease being a member of Parliament representing their party, that party must formally write to the office of the Speaker withdrawing that member. There is no letter from the ANC suspending the membership of the ANC, of the President of the ANC. So this notion that the President has been suspended it's a myth. It must be rejected with contempt because there is no NEC decision suspending the President. So I think it's important to put it into perspective. This joke which they are trying to make is neither here nor there.
Yeah, Honorable Member, it's not let's regard it as an inappropriate reference to members of the House because there's a way in which we have agreed in the rules to talk to each other. Comment that is out of order is out of order. I actually read to you and told you as the House that I or any other presiding officer will read from the House, whether you are still with us or not, including the President. So anybody else who smuggles things here is out of order. So I request you to stay with that ruling, honorable members, all of you in the House. Honorable Zungula, ngicela uyirhoqise lento ebiza uPresident ukwazi ukuqhubeka kakuhle ngendlela eqondile. Kawenze kanjalo baba.
Ngiyarhoqisa Deputy Speaker.
Ngiyabonga ngoba uhlonipha indlu. Yeah. Qhubeka ke.
So, as ISIS threatened South Africa against intervening in Mozambique, and there were reports of ISIS training manuals found in 2020 in the Val, and there is a huge number of undocumented non-South African citizens living in South Africa. We know that the insurgents were pushed from Kenya to Tanzania, from Tanzania to Mozambique. Does this not compound the threat of terror within our borders? And what action has the government taken to proactively deal with this threat? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. You were on the boundary dangerously. Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The government, through its various institutions and agencies, keeps a very close watch on the activities of insurgents and would-be insurgents, both in our own country and outside of our country. We are watching the situation and constantly doing so to secure the safety of South Africans. In doing so, obviously, we've got to be alert to whatever plans these insurgents or would-be insurgents would have. And I'd like to assure Honorable Zungula that we remain seized with this matter through our various agencies. And we are just focusing on one issue, and one issue only, to secure the lives of South Africans and to ensure that there is stability within our country. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On this question, the last supplementary is asked by Honorable M.G. Hendricks. We're listening to you, sir.
My question, Honourable President, is why has the Southern African Development Community Heads of State permitted private security companies, of whom some were former apartheid government henchmen, to enter regional conflict instead of using their armies effectively and meaningfully to deal with the problems created by the conflict? Why don't we have a standby African force? And as the Speaker of the House has demanded, a standby African force led by women. Southern African Development Community Heads of State has failed to take into consideration the causes of the insurgency in Cabo Delgado and how to deal with the region's socio-economic and political dilemmas. I'm most concerned about the reports labeling the insurgents as Islamists and jihadists, which the House Chair of Parliament settled once and for all. Religion must not be associated with violence, which is now the editorial policy of our state broadcaster. Honourable President, I'm sure that you're not going to have a problem with the menu that we're going to see later this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you, Daddy.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We continue to work with other countries to address precisely the issues that Honourable Hendricks has put across, including the issue of the standby force on our continent, which can move rapidly to deal with all these challenges. Various other regions on our continent have been able to cooperate and work together to deal with insurgency. And we are doing exactly the same in our region. And this follows the meeting of the Troika, double Troika, and it's now going to be held later to take proactive action in this regard. Private security firms have often been employed by various companies that work in the various countries, and they have employed them for security purposes, and that is why sometimes you will see the participation, the presence of various private security companies, and they are acting at the instance of the various commercial interests that exist in the various countries. As for governments, we are obviously determined to make sure that we root out terrorism of whatever sort, and we ensure that we secure the stability of our various countries and also save the lives of our people and make sure that there are no internally displaced people, as this insurgency often leads to situations like that. So we are working on the matter, and with a good information base that we get, we are able to take a number of decisions on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members, the next question is number 5, is asked by Honorable Singh. Mr. President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The importance of the Port of Durban lies at the very heart of our economy. It is the country's largest logistical hub for imports and exports, and it affects almost every aspect of our country's economic activity. During the last decade, the port has lost its status as the best performing port on the African continent. The Durban port used to be #1 on our continent and used to be counted as one of the very good ports in the world. We've now descended to #3. In recent years, the port has suffered from long waiting times, inefficient operations and congestions, which has affected large parts of the Durban metro itself. As you know, I visited the port several weeks ago to ensure that measures are being implemented to improve the port's efficiency and competitiveness. The new management team of Transnet is working very hard to turn around the port's performance. The group chief executive officer, Ms. Portia Darby, is doing everything she can, together with her wonderful team of young people, to turn the port around. The management has put in place an ambitious plan for the expansion of the port infrastructure that will modernize and transform the port, alongside measures to improve performance and productivity and to reduce congestion in the near term. Over the next decade, this plan will expand the capacity of the port for container handling from 2.9 million units to more than 11 million units of cargo. It will position the port as a hub port for the region, the continent, and the entire Southern African hemisphere. These expansion efforts will require greater private sector participation and investment in the port sector, well beyond the capacity of Transnet's own balance sheet. Partnerships with the private sector are crucial to bring new expertise to port operations and to modernize equipment and infrastructure at the port. Among the plans that have been outlined by Transnet is the advertising of a concession to build and operate the new port terminal by 2021, which will crowd in private sector investment and improve the efficiency of the container handling process. This does not mean the port will be privatized. We should not confuse the concessioning of terminal operations with privatization of the port. And a number of these can be done along programs such as build, operate, and transfer, and PPPs rather. The Durban port is and will remain an important national asset belonging to the people of South Africa. Massive new investment in port infrastructure will not only lower costs and improve the competitiveness of our ports, but will in fact create thousands of new jobs, both in the port itself and in the economy as a whole. And I see a lot of improvements taking place in Durban Port. There is a lot of hope, and the management team has responded to a number of challenges that have been raised by the private sector. And I left the Durban Port precinct filled with hope that new things are about to happen at that port. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Deputy. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, we welcome the public-private partnership in the upgrading of the Durban port. And we certainly hope that the people of South Africa will derive tangible benefits from the project. However, we believe that when such projects are undertaken, the interests of our people and our sovereignty as a nation should come first. We cannot and should not willy-nilly hand over our jewels to the private sector. And whilst we can engage the private sector for its expertise, we must retain our strategic assets as they belong to the people of South Africa. Now, Honorable President, one was concerned when one saw media reports after your, what I would call, quote unquote, historic visit to the Durban port. And then I see you threw in some campaigning at the same time in an area in KZN. That labor unions were concerned that they were not consulted properly before these announcements were made. Now, we know that it's important to have business, government, private sector, and labor to work together in these regards. And we know what could happen, for example, when we had gear that was introduced by your former colleague, former President Thabo Mbeki. There was resistance to gear. So I'd like to know, Honorable President, what is the position with regard to labor's stance on this initiative? And having said that, Honorable President, you know, there's a very large sector out there which we don't consult, and that's the unemployed sector. And there are millions of unemployed, particularly youth. How are these projects going to benefit those sectors, and how will they be consulted so that, you know, they also, we can deal with the issue of unemployment in our country at a very, very sustainable level? And I would also encourage further PPPs in other state-owned enterprises, and let's hope that you can mention some of those other state-owned enterprises like SA and others. Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Honorable President.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much, Honorable Singh. I'm sorry that when I visited Durban Port, I was not able to see you. You would most probably have wanted to get me to see you campaigning somewhere where you may well have been campaigning. But we will meet next time when I'm in KZN. Labour will always, and correctly so, be concerned about initiatives that they fear could lead to the loss of jobs. They're right to be concerned about that because they represent their own members, and they're right to be concerned about not being consulted, because I do firmly believe that Labour should be consulted on the trajectory of companies that they work for, the transformation thereof, the restructuring thereof. They need to be informed, and they should participate and give their own views. That is why I continue to argue that Labour should not hold back from sitting on the boards of directors, even of companies that they organize workers in, because it gives them a ringside seat so that they're able not only to listen and observe, but also to participate in decision making. In this regard, Transnet is looking at resolving the problems of congestion at the port. I believe that this matter has been raised with Labour, and Labour's fear is that they fear that Transnet could be seeking to find a way of privatizing the port. I'd like to say that that is far from truth. The view is not privatization. The view is working with the private sector in a way where we can crowd the private sector in and get them to work with us for creating greater value. And nobody can be opposed to creating greater value because it is always good for job creation. It is always good to bring in technology. And it is also always good to ensure that there are great efficiencies. Now, this obviously is a matter that needs to be discussed at close range with the private sector, with Labour. Our objective is to retain our assets and to ensure that we retain our own sovereignty over the assets that we own as a government, and give direction to where we are able to make sure that we create and extract as much value as we possibly can. If through working with the private sector we are able to unleash a great deal of capital from the private sector, which we may not have, I would say that it should be done in a way where we're not selling the assets, where we're not compromising our own position, but where we cooperate with the private sector on a special basis. And that is why I always argue that there should be a process through which we're able to find a way in which we work with the private sector without people fearing that we are privatizing. Some can come in as strategic equity partners, where we work with them in that regard. They bring in finance, they bring in technology and new ways of doing things. And that has been broadly accepted, that we can have a situation where we have strategic equity partners who can work with us to show up and to uplift our state-owned enterprises. I would argue that we should not be shy, we should not be afraid. Government should always remain in control of the destiny of our state-owned enterprises. So there should be no fear about all this, Honorable Singh. We will always make sure that the family silver is well maintained, but we should open a way of working with the private sector, because that's where the money is, that's where sometimes the technological advancement resides. And if we can find that balance, it's a wonderful balance if we can find it, of working together with the private sector. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next second supplementary question is asked by Honorable S.H. Mbuyani.
Chairperson, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Sorry. Yeah. Mr. President, you have made the point about the importance of infrastructure investment to drive economy and transformation. You also spoken previously about the significant development in the export of South African-made cars and other manufactured product opportunities in the marine as well as in the oil and gas industry. Mr. President, in your view, how will this modernization of the port help to expand the export in the rest of the African continent, also support the localization and advance the goal set out in the economic recovery and reconstruction plan that we tabled here October last year. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Ndate Mbuyani. Honorable Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The revamping of Durban Port is really going to be a major boost for our economy. As it is now, the port contributes quite significantly to the GDP of our own country, the GDP of the province, and the GDP of the metro. So it's a massive, mighty player in the economic life of our country. And once it acquires and achieves high levels of efficiency, we will be able to be the export conduit for not only the Southern African region, but also for our continent. Right now, ships go past Durban Port and go to other ports on the continent and then deliver their goods, and then the goods get transported by road. We want Durban Port to regain its glory and its positioning on our continent, because through that, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area agreement then becomes much more of a reality, because Durban Port is, once it acquires the #1 status again, becomes the much needed port on the continent, and it will be by choice from a number of exporters and importers. So it is going to play a critical role, and it is for that reason that we want to unlock its capability. And there are going to be a whole number of other lines that will be developed and promoted as the port gets better. So it will continue to play a huge economic role in the life of South Africa and indeed of our region. One cannot, emphasize more the importance of that port. But having said that, it's important also to develop and promote the other ports in our country. We're a country that is well endowed with a very long coastline, more than many other countries on our continent, but also with a number of ports that serve a number of purposes. For instance, Richards Bay is a bulk port for coal and many other commodities. Not many countries boast of having so many ports. Along our southern coastline, we've got Gqeberha, we've got East London, we've got Tukucha, and then on the western side and Cape Town. So we are well endowed with a number of good ports, and up on the western side, we've got Saldanha. So we are a country that is well endowed with good ports, and we want to make sure that we revamp all of them. The East London port needs that very much, because it's an auto port as well to export the motor vehicles that are made here. So a great future awaits not only Durban Port, but also our various other ports. And with the Ports Authority and with Transnet increasing its capability, I believe very strongly that the injection into our economy is going to be quite substantial. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next and third is by Honorable the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. President, throughout the world, the trend of privatization of port operations has seen those ports become the most efficient and busiest in the world. South Africa's ports rank amongst the least efficient. Out of the top 70 efficient ports in the world, South Africa doesn't even make the list. That's a disaster for our economy and jobs. Now, Honourable Singh speaks of the fears of the unions. Yes, but mine wasn't a 30% like yours. But it's the fears of companies facing business failure, or the fears of their fresh produce, including those emerging farmers from the Eastern Cape you spoke about, whose stock sits rotting at our ports, that should concern you more. Now, I agree with you that efficiency should be the priority. But the only thing that boosts efficiency is competition, not only between our ports and other ports, but also internal competition between Durban, Cape Town, Kucha, and Saldanha. One sure way to do that is to let the DA provincial government take control of the Cape Town port. Mr. President,
Steenhuisen, your time has expired.
but I was interrupted, Deputy Speaker. With respect.
No. Honourable member, your time has expired. Your time has expired.
Deputy Speaker, I had to stop because there was somebody talking on the program.
Honourable member, I spoke to you earlier. You have refused to take you dismissed my advice to you.
Didn't.
You did.
Deputy Speaker.
Look at, no, I'm not accepting it. Your time has expired, sir. With the greatest of respect.
They should send you to the Zondo Commission. I think you've got some answering to do.
I would be absolutely glad to go there.
Deputy
I have nothing
Speaker,
to hide. Yes, Honourable
I'd
member.
like to rise on a point of order.
What's the point of order, Honourable member?
Deputy Speaker, while the Leader of the Official Opposition was speaking, a member unmuted themselves on the virtual platform. I didn't see the surname. The first name was Nancy. She interrupted the Honourable Steenhuisen for a period of 9 seconds. I time it on my phone. And I would like that noted, please, and I would like the member who disrupted the proceedings to please be admonished for turning on the microphone and wasting the time of the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Yeah. No, we'll do that. We'll check who it is and so on. But, Honourable member, your time has expired. And unfortunately, I said so. I pleaded with you, all of you in the House, including you, Honourable Steenhuisen. I'm afraid I'm not allowing you. I'm very generous, generally. I'm very generous, generally. Mr. President, a comment was made. Please respond.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I had Honourable Steenhuisen saying that the privatization of ports, which is happening around the world, is serving a number of countries well. That may well be so in a number of areas. The one that I admire the most are two countries. It is Singapore. The Singapore port, which is amongst possibly the top 3 in the world, is owned by government as part of their assets that they own through the entity that they have, which is called Temasek. They are a most efficient port. I say so advisedly because I have visited that port and have gone into the belly of its operations just to see how that port operates. And I spent quite a considerable amount of time talking to the Prime Minister, getting to understand how that, not only how that port works, but how the governance process works in Temasek in relation to the port itself. And I also spent quite a bit of time in China, talking to a number of people who run some of their ports there. And most of them are government-owned. And then I took the trouble to go to Togo, another country which is handling its port extremely well. The port is growing by leaps and bounds. They've been able to bring in a private sector player to help them, yes, revamp their port and reposition it, but it's still in government ownership. And the concessionaire, if you like, and the government have a wonderful relationship, and that is how they brought in the private sector to contribute greatly to the efficiency of their ports. Mr. Steenhuisen would like the Cape Town port to be handed over to the Democratic Alliance. Mr. Steenhuisen, that is not going to happen. Cape Town Port is part and parcel of our Transnet portfolio, and it contributes greatly to the economy of our country, and we are proud of that, much as the port is in Cape Town, because we see ourselves as a unitary state, and these ports all operate to add value to the nation as a whole. Right now, we are on a journey and a process to revamp our ports, make them a lot more efficient, so that they can go back to their glory days. And it so happens that our ports, Durban Port, for instance, used to be amongst the top, I would say, 15 in the world. And at the same time, Cape Town used to also be well run. And now we've got a management team in Transnet that is improving the efficiencies, and they are monitoring it on a minute-by-minute basis and looking at how many minutes it takes just to handle a container, and how quickly are they able to handle containers as they come through. Also, you should know that our ports have various divisions that, yes, in some ways compete against each other. They work together, but as they accede to higher levels of efficiency, we're finding that they are doing well, and they are going to be doing even a lot better with the new management team that we've got at Transnet. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last on this question is asked by Honourable Mokwe.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The President, you just said now in your last statement that the Transnet team wants to manage or know how many minutes it takes. So that talks directly to efficiency. But before I get there, I want us to demystify the idea that the Durban port is inefficient. The Durban port is the second largest and busiest port in sub-Saharan Africa. That is a fact. 2, for you to make it even more efficient, you don't need to bring the private sector. You need programs like your Lean Six Sigma program to streamline their processes. With that program, it will be easy for them to know how many minutes it takes. Now, the inefficiency that you should be talking about is of the minister that you deployed in SOEs. Because with his inefficiency, we see the drop in the glory of the then Transnet. Transnet used to be in the top 2, as you just said. That's correct.
Honourable
but because
member,
of the current
your
minister,
time has expired.
No, but Deputy Speaker. So my question is, Deputy
Honourable
President.
Member, your time has expired.
No, Deputy Speaker, it can't be.
No, it has.
No,
it has.
no.
It's 17 seconds.
President,
your time
with
has
your
expired.
privatization, are you trying to smart proposal made by
I said
IMF
to you,
and the
your
World
time
Bank?
has expired.
No, Deputy Speaker, it has not expired.
No, Honourable Member, I spoke to you earlier on here that you have allocated time, you have no authority to exceed it. No authority, no excuse. Honourable Member, Honourable Member, I told you and you are defying me. No, you are. Now, Honourable Member, I have informed you of the decision
Deputy
I have
Speaker,
made.
no, Deputy
you
Speaker.
know what you should
Deputy
do.
Speaker.
Your time is expired.
Deputy Speaker, I'm asking a question. I'm not arguing. I'm asking a question to the President. Allow me to ask a question to the President.
I am not going
Stop
to allow you
protecting the President,
because you deliberately overstretched your time allocated to you after I warned you before. You have no authority to do that.
Deputy Speaker.
You will not do that.
Deputy Speaker.
You will not do that.
Deputy Speaker, can I address
Now,
you?
I'm muting
Can I
you now.
address you?
But the Deputy Speaker, allow her to ask the question.
Honourable members, I told you in the morning, earlier on, that you've got allocated time.
You can't be focusing on everything else but your question. And that's the problem. I told you I'm stopping you, and you are not going to ask that question because you had an opportunity to do so within your allocated time. There is no flexibility anymore. Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, can you show me the time that you're talking about?
I'll show you.
No, I want you to show me now because I want to ask the question. The president is here now. I want to ask him a question now.
Honorable Member, I'm muting you now, okay? And you are not going to have any say anymore. We are done with you. If you proceed, you are going to leave. If you proceed, you are going to leave. You are going, yes. Honorable Member, look at you. Please go. Please leave. Honorable Mautwe, with the greatest respect, don't continue to do that. You are compounding the problem you are creating, Honorable Member. I ask you to go now. Look at you pointing at me. Please leave. With the greatest respect, Assembly. Assembly. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, no, man.
On a point of order,
members, please, man. Honorable members, please, let's allow the president.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Yes, honorable member, speak. What's the point?
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, what's the point of order?
Speaking thing.
On a point of order.
I am listening.
Deputy Speaker, allow the president to answer the question. Yes, allow the president to answer the questions.
Honorable member.
But for you to be chasing members out, who's going to get the president answering the questions? You did this to the president when he was asking the question. You are doing it again. Stop being emotional when EFF members are asking questions.
Honorable member, there's no order in what you are saying. Just if you don't play by the rules, you are not going to be allowed to continue to play.
There's no order in what you are saying. You are not orderly yourself. You are emotional.
Honorable members.
You are not orderly.
Honorable members.
Why are you shouting at members?
Honorable members.
We're not your kids.
I have ruled.
Stop treating us like your children. We're not your kids. We're members just like you.
Can you switch off that member's mic? Can you close that mic? Close it. If you want to go. Okay. No. We know who you are.
No, but you said Delele is parliamentary. You said it's parliamentary. You said it yourself. You said Delele is parliamentary.
You are compounding the problem you have created.
No, it's your problem. You are creating a problem.
Can you go, please?
Yourself.
Can you leave? I'm going to mute you. Honorable members, we will not allow this disorder. Honorable members, can you be orderly, please? Allow the House to proceed. Don't add. Honorable members, I said be orderly. No, man, you're out of order, man. That's the reason. You can't be screaming here when the presiding officer is...
Yeah, you must chase them out of the house.
You go...
Chase them out of the house. Stop saying that.
Honorable member on the virtual platform, switch off his mic, her mic, please. Please switch off her mic. We won't have disorder here, people behaving as if they can play outside of the rules. No. Honorable members, can we proceed? Mr. President, it's your time, please. No.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
No, honorable members, allow me to chair, please. With the greatest of respect, I'm requesting the president to respond. With the greatest of...
No, with the greatest respect, Deputy Speaker, it's a point of order.
Honorable Ndlozi. What are you rising on? What are you
raising on a point of order?
No, what are you rising on? What is the issue you want to address? Let's proceed, honorable members. Let's proceed. Mr. President, please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable
Deputy Speaker, can I raise a point of order?
I asked you, on what basis are you raising an order?
No, I wanted to ask, when are you taking a break? Because I think you are tired, Deputy Speaker. Give other people to
Honorable
preside.
Member,
Just take a break, man. It's not bad.
Because you are tired. You are disorderly. This is the fourth time.
No, I'm saying you are tired. Watches all the time. Why don't you go outside, get
Can
air
you switch off that
and
mic,
breathe?
please? Can you switch off that mic? Actually, you mustn't reopen that mic again, please. This is absolutely disorderly, and he's doing it deliberately. No, man, no. This is unacceptable. We are proceeding. I mustn't hear that microphone because it must be switched off altogether. Mr. President, please proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. To the extent that I heard the question or comments which did not, in my view, culminate into a question, it was about achieving greater efficiencies at the port, at Durban Port, and the Honourable Member was saying that we should not really be focusing on saying that the Durban Port is inefficient. I like the approach of saying that we should be focusing more on the efficiencies that Durban Port has. That is what we are aiming to have, a much more efficient port. And the good thing is that we've been number one on the continent in sub-Saharan Africa. We are now number 3, and the entire management team is focused on getting us to become number 1 again. And they're taking a number of steps. They've already achieved a number of great efficiencies measured against the benchmark that exists in the world. And we are beginning to move forward. They've taken the task of repositioning Durban Port very, very seriously. And I have no doubt whatsoever that working together with all partners, including the private sector, they'll be able to get there. And I seem to have heard the Honourable Member saying, no, you don't need the private sector. The successful ports around the world are those that have been able to utilize the contribution that the private sector has to make in the form of technology, in the form of management systems, and just a greater delivery capability that the private sector has. And we are saying that we want to crowd the private sector in as they bring in money, skills, and technology. So if we bring them in, and we bring them in on our terms, there's nothing that can beat that. Because we're all working towards a good end. Of course, the private sector will always be seeking to work to achieving profits, but so should we. But our other important aspect is that we should be developmental in what we do. Durban Port is going to be developed through focusing on having a developmental approach, which will result in the creation of jobs, which will result in the bringing in of young people to be properly skilled and trained. And so in the end, we see great mutual benefit as we work with the private sector, and we do so to advance our combined interests. So I'm not worried and concerned about the cooperation that we can have, so long as it is based on principle, so long as it is based on good partnership, where we foster the development of each partner as we move on. So thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members, we move to the, I think is the sixth and last question asked by Honorable Groenewald. Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The National Strategic Plan for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide requires that the country should strengthen the capacity within the criminal justice system to do a number of things, but also to apprehend and successfully prosecute perpetrators. The criminal justice system is expected to provide justice, safety, and protection for survivors of gender-based violence, but also care to the survivors. A number of existing initiatives and measures, such as the Tutuzela Care Centers, the SAPS Family Violence, Child Protection and Offences Units, and our sexual offences courts are continuing to do precisely that by providing services to gender-based violence survivors. And this is the care and the compassion that we want all these units to demonstrate when they deal with gender-based violence and femicide cases. We're also confident that the 3 new bills which are currently before Parliament for consideration will, once passed into law, further strengthen government's response to prevent and combat GBV, gender-based violence in all its forms. With respect to the backlog in cases relating to gender-based violence during the course of the 4th quarter of 2021 financial year, the South African Police Service finalized 3,534 dockets for crimes against women that have been outstanding for more than a year. This, if one does the maths, constitutes 42% of the total of 8,889 dockets that have been outstanding for more than a year. While this is welcome progress, and it is progress, our ability to effectively investigate and prosecute gender-based violence is severely limited and hampered by the backlog in DNA cases at forensic laboratories. According to the South African Police Service, 2,556 DNA cases related to gender-based violence were finalized between 18 February and the 25th of April this year. As at 25th of April this year, there were more than 83,000 gender-based violence-related cases in process, and more than 77,000 were older than 35 calendar days. This is clearly unacceptable, and if allowed to continue at this pace, will severely hamper the fight against gender-based violence. A number of interventions have been implemented by the South African Police Service to address DNA backlogs. And these include, amongst others, improving supply chain processes, the procurement of consumables at a cost of 4.2 million by way of deviation from the National Treasury, for the prioritization of cases identified by the National Prosecuting Authority, and the filling of vacant posts in forensic science laboratories. An additional 250 million was allocated to the operational baseline budget to address challenges in forensic laboratory services. The South African Police Service has also initiated the bidding process to award all outstanding contracts for the consumables and other critical areas addressing DNA backlogs. In this regard, South African Police Service developed a DNA backlog recovery plan, which is a multidisciplinary intervention within and outside the South African Police Service. This action plan, with clear timeframes and timelines, was presented to Parliament's Portfolio Committee in March of this year. Now, a new forensic exhibit management system was implemented on the 6th of April 2021 to enable the effective tracking and tracing of samples received at the different laboratories. Now, we're also having regular meetings that are being held between the police and the Department of Justice and the National Prosecuting Authority to assist the NPA with the prosecution of these cases and to fast-track DNA analysis reports of court cases that have been long outstanding. Now, Honorable Deputy Speaker, in addition to these initiatives, the Presidency is working with the Gender-Based Violence Response Fund, which is a private sector initiative to mobilize funds to tackle gender-based violence. And the South African Police Service also to find effective ways to clear the backlog. To expand forensic capacity, the work study investigation on the establishment of DNA analysis capability at the Eastern Cape Forensic Laboratory was concluded in February 2021. This is the one where a number of people that I came across more than a year ago, well, almost 2 years ago, complained. And I'm glad that this process is now moving forward. So our police are engaged with the Labour Department to review the basic conditions of employment of people who are working in this sector, to allow for a shift system to increase working hours of staff. Our forensic laboratory services are crucial as far as improving the response to the criminal justice system, and in particular to the gender-based violence process. We're therefore resolved to work with all stakeholders, and we're rather pleased that a number of stakeholders have been willing to work with us to draw on whatever resources are available to remove these backlogs as soon as possible. And I have no doubt that these backlogs are going to be removed as we focus more and more on how we can address gender-based violence and femicide in our country in a proactive manner that will make the women of our country and the children of our country feel a lot more protected. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Achtbare PJ Groenewald, dus is een kans nu.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable President, to you, I wish I could have been optimistic as you are. I thank you for the numbers and the figures, although I have my doubts on that, but I will follow that up in the Portfolio Committee on Police, on which I serve, because we have a different picture there. The fact of the matter is, Honorable President, the question must be asked, why did we get into this situation where, for instance, the DNA backlog on cases, we're talking about 173,000 cases. Yes, I understand not all of them are gender-based violence. The fact is that there are actually two reasons. The one is that there was no consumables available for the laboratories, which the Honourable Minister for Police only realized in March this year. Secondly, the system of exhibit tracking has been stopped last year in June. There has been 9 court cases, the last one a constitutional court case, which the police have lost. My follow-up question is the Honourable President willing to interfere and to ensure that we don't have further court cases and that these problems be solved on the consumables and the court cases. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I'd like to thank Honorable Groenewald for saying that he recognizes that there's some progress, but he doubts the figures, and I'd like to invite him, yes, to interrogate the figures at the portfolio committee level, because these figures were given to me by the police themselves. And that I was pleased about because it has raised the level of consciousness and awareness and attention amongst the police about the importance of this work. You want to know why, where, how did we get there? And I must admit that there has not been very good focus, and the minister also admits this and now is working feverishly to make sure that there's greater focus. The minister himself, as well as the commissioner and the leadership of the police, are now much more aware that this is important work and it's got to be done. I will not be able to give you a guarantee that we will prevent and stop court cases, because court cases are initiated by individuals, by people, and one can never really give a guarantee in that regard. But what I can say is that, yes, we will continue with our attention. My office will continue to focus on this. Professor Olive Shisana is always focused on gender-based violence issues, working together with the team of leaders who are executing the National Strategic Plan. So I have a level of comfort that it will be done, but I am deeply worried about the continuing spate of gender-based violence cases, and we want to ensure that not only the laws that we pass, but also the implementation that you talk about, Honorable Groenewald, does actually take place. We want to do this because it's important for our country to take the issue of gender-based violence very seriously. It is a blight on our nation. It doesn't make us look good at all. So we need to continue with our efforts to make sure that we eliminate gender-based violence in South Africa. And this is one of the better ways of being able to do so, because we've got to follow up those who have made it their business to perpetrate violence against the women of our country. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second supplementary is asked by Honorable Jumat Peterson.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. From the response given by our Honorable President, it is very clear that the DNA turnaround plan of SABC will have the desired effect on reducing the backlog in cases related to gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable President, do you believe that the steps taken by SABC will be sufficient to address the backlog in DNA tests and thus positively contribute towards our strategy and our fight against the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, yes, I do believe that the measures and the steps that we are going to take will make a very positive contribution. And we need to have confidence that the initiatives that are being taken, particularly in relation to ensuring that the DNA problems and challenges and backlogs are solved, will make a huge contribution. But it also depends on all of us working together to rid our country of gender-based violence. And we've agreed that it cannot be done by the women of our country alone, nor can it be done by government alone. It has to be done by all of us collectively working together. And there are various aspects to this. There's the criminal justice system, which needs to be strengthened. There's the legislative system that is now before Parliament that we need to address. And there's the mobilization process, where we need to mobilize all of society, especially men and young boys, to make sure that they respect the rights of women. But there's also the other technical side of making sure that things like DNA backlogs are resolved. And the cases of the past are also resolved because those who perpetrate violence against women must know that they cannot get away. And we also need to rid our country of patriarchy, so that the men of our country must know that they don't own the women of South Africa. They are their fellow citizens, they have rights as much as everybody else has, and we must treat them with respect and with good understanding as well. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable the Leader of the Opposition, the third supplementary. What do you mean? No. I haven't stopped you. I haven't stopped anyone right now. Can you sort out the mic there?
Thank you very much. Mr. President, it's very easy to get lost in statistics, but when you actually listen to the real experiences of the victims of gender-based violence, you will know that there is a significant problem. I recently met a mother in Pietermaritzburg who shared with me the horrific story of her daughter, Dominique Duploy, who was hijacked, forced to drink poison, assaulted, and presumably raped. She died the next day from her injuries. That was in December 2019. In the year and a half since, her family are yet to see any progress in the case. She doesn't have a case number, witnesses have not been interviewed, and they were told that the outstanding toxicology report could take 5 years. 5 years. What world is that acceptable? It's not only DNA, it's the basics, like toxicology. Mr. President, if you think you're winning the war on gender-based violence, you're being misled. What is your message to Dominique Duploy's family, and when can they expect justice? And how do you explain this failure to deal with gender-based violence to the millions of terrified women in South Africa?
Thank you. Mr. President, you were dead on time.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I will say to Mr. Steenhuisen, Honorable Steenhuisen, the case that he relates now is a harrowing case, very, very concerning. And the story that you've just related, these stories are multiplied many times over. As one goes around the country, I had occasion 2 weeks ago to be in the Free State, where we were opening a center, and one of our MECs in the Free State was relating some really horrific stories of how the women of our country are not only battered, but they are also killed by their loved one, those men who say they love them. And it is concerning that the cases that flow from such horrible acts are not followed up with the enthusiasm that we want. The police service in our country, I must say, they're trying the very best that they can. There are gaps, there are lapses, and there are shortcomings. And the type of gap and shortcoming that you are alluding to is one that I would like our Minister of Police to follow up, because it is concerning. It should be addressed. I have personally gone to the homes of a number of women who have been dealt with very violently, either killed or assaulted, and gone there to offer condolences and to try and demonstrate compassion. We've got a societal problem, but the police needs to be there to give the support and to demonstrate compassion to the women of our country. So on that one, I think there's been a huge shortcoming and a lapse, and I would like to see that being followed up with immediate effect, because it should not be so. They should not be saying it will take 5 years to deal with the DNA aspects of this case, but also to have witnesses interviewed. These things matter so much to the families that are affected. They are about the government demonstrating that it is a caring government. It is a government that has compassion and wants to see the best that can be done for the women of our country. And I'd like us to continue raising these matters so that we raise the level of awareness and the level of alertness that our police should have in dealing with this matter. But thank you very much for bringing it to our attention, and I'd like the Minister to follow it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last supplementary question is by Honorable Majosi. Honorable Majosi.
Deputy Speaker, she's going to be online.
Yes, I'm aware he's online, but I'm not hearing him. I hear you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I'm here.
Okay. Welcome. All right.
Mr. President, the Commission for Gender Equality recently released its report on the government's emergency response action plan on gender-based violence and femicide. And it shows the grim reality of little accountability by government in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. It is highly concerning that the report found that it is, and I quote, still unclear how the 1.6 funds committed by the President towards the Emergency Response Action Plan were to be raised and dispersed for the implementation of the plan, unquote. Mr. President, considering the urgency of addressing gender-based violence and femicide in our country and rolling out the intervention program, what immediate actions will be taken relating to the recommendations in the report? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and compliments for staying within your allocated time. Dr. President, please talk to us.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The amount of money we allocated was 1.6 billion, and it was money that various government departments were going to be spending and allocating for the various programs that were agreed on in terms of our national strategic plan. And so the execution thereof was underpinned by the availability of this money. And the committee that has been put in place, one of its key tasks is to monitor the allocation of the money, the spending of the money, and to make sure that indeed the money is there. So I will be waiting to receive a report from this committee so that they are able to give an account of what has happened. One of the reasons we wanted this type of committee is to ensure that the work gets done. The National Strategic Plan is implemented in full in all its ramifications, but that they should also keep government on its toes and ensure that at government level we do indeed implement what we said we would. So we've got an oversight, it is almost like an oversight committee, and where there is a flaw, where there is a weakness, it is meant to be escalated to the highest level. So that's what I would be waiting for. I expect that this being a high-profile program and objective, it is something that will be done to good effect. It may well be that we're not doing as effectively as we ought to. But the commitment is there, and if it is flagging and lacking, we will be making sure that indeed it is achieved. Deputy Speaker, we end on a rather sad note on the issue of gender-based violence, but I'd like to reiterate that I think we've raised the level of awareness as a nation on the gender-based violence issue. What we now need to do is to all work together to make sure that what we set out and what the women of our country set out in the National Strategic Plan, which is very unique in the world, is actually implemented, and that all of us must work together with the women of our nation to promote a gender-based violence-free South Africa, so that the women of our country can walk around and live without any fear. They can be free, knowing that they are not going to be violently assaulted or even killed. So we must and we will continue to work to make sure. And I'd like to call upon Parliament to hasten the process of finalizing those 3 bills, because the women of our country are looking forward to this Parliament to do its part. But much more importantly, all of us as leaders need to be making sure that we spread the message. We speak as loudly as we possibly can against those who perpetrate violence, so that the silence can disappear in our nation, because when that happens, the level of consciousness amongst our people is raised to a higher level. The pandemic of gender-based violence must come to an end, but I'm hoping that all of us will continue working together in that regard. I'd like to thank you, Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to appear even on a virtual basis before the National Assembly to answer these questions. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, that concludes questions to the President, and we thank you, Mr. President, for having done so. You haven't sweated enough. We'd like to bring you back. We really appreciate your coming, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Honourable members, that concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned.
How Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.